Hey guys, today I want to show you how we are finding people's email addresses, valid email addresses, for between 0 0.1 and 0 0.3 cents each. And this is a strategy that we implemented at the end of 2025 going into 2026, which is to connect our Clay account to Supabase. So Supabase is a very affordable database tool that allows you to store all of your lead information. So we have more than 6 million leads in our Supabase account. If you've already spent money in the past to find a person's email address and validate it, then why would you spend the money again to re-find it and revalidate it? So over time, when you're doing lead generation, your lists are going to be huge, and if you have one central repository in which you can keep them all, then you're going to save a lot of money. So this is exactly how this workflow works. Basically what we're doing here is we have this table in this workbook that is dedicated purely to the email waterfall. So we have people's full names and their domains, which is usually everything you need to find a email address. The first step that we do is we're using an HTTP API column here to check if we have that person's email address already in Supabase. So this is just querying our Supabase database and returning status code 200, meaning it has successfully ran. And the Supabase email, if found, would be here. You can see in these rows that I'm showing you now, we don't have email addresses in our Supabase account for these people. And then it would also show us, it would also return the ESP type, because I'm very interested in knowing if a person's domain is on Microsoft, Google, or SMTP, and if they're using any security email gateways. And then we have the date when they were last validated. So this is essential because if the date when they were last validated is more than, say, 60 days or 90 days ago, we want to revalidate that because people move companies, people retire, and there's all kinds of reasons why this may no longer be valid, even if it was in the past. So from there, we do an MX lookup. This tells us the domain ESP type, such as Google, SMTP, or Microsoft, and are they using a security email gateway? So in this example, yes, they are. If we look inside this, we would see that they're using something like Proofpoint, Mimecast. In that case, I don't want to contact them. If an email address was found in Supabase, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to run a verification step to verify that email address and see if it is valid. If it returns valid risky, then we'll run BounceBan on it to see if it is a deliverable catch-all or not. From there, we generate email patterns. So the way we're doing this is we have a formula that cleans up their first name and last name, and then we're generating patterns using formulas. So in this example, this person's name is Heather Hineker, so we're using the first name only for pattern 1, which is heather@domain.com. And so by generating patterns, we are saving money versus just using an email finding tool, because the cost to validate a pattern generated email address is a fraction of the cost of finding one. So when we look at Kit, which is one of the cheapest, possibly the cheapest email finding tool and email verification tool on the market right now, the cost to find an email address using Kit is ½ cent US. The cost to verify a email address using Kit's verification tool is 0.15 of a cent, I believe. So in most cases, this pattern, which is first name at company name or domain, is going to work because founders of small local businesses, which is what we're doing here, tend to just use their first name in their email address, like luke@company.com and so on. So in most cases, if this pattern is generated, this is the most likely one to return a valid outcome when we verify it. So we're using Kit to verify that, and it costs 0.15 cents per validation, and it costs nothing to generate this pattern. It's just a formula. And if that works, then great. That gets sent to the final email valid column in this table. If not, we have pattern 2. Pattern 2 is first.last name at domain, and we will validate that if the first validation didn't return a valid email address. Then we have pattern 3, which is first letter of first name followed by last name. We validate that. Then we have first name, last name at domain.com, and we validate that. So what you get is the first valid pattern. Then we have risky. If any of those results from the verification steps 1 to 4 return valid risky, then we're going to put them into this column, and then we're going to verify them using BounceBan, which verifies if a catch-all email address is deliverable. And then what we have is our final valid email address. If none of those patterns worked, as a last resort, or close to the last resort, we will use Kit to find their email address. And then we have role-based emails. So these are local businesses. So in many cases, if they're small businesses, they'll just have one sort of communal email address like info@, and those can still work when you're reaching out to a small local business. They still can get positive replies or any replies. And so we use a formula to generate those based on the person's role. So for example, this person in row 2, their job title is president. So we're trying president@domain.com. And if not, we're using info@, because that's the most common to work. We validate that using Kit. We then have our final valid email. And from there, what we do is if we did find a valid email address for anyone, we will upsert them, meaning we will upload or insert them into our Supabase table, so that now we have a record of an email address that's valid at this time in our Supabase database. We also have the date when that validation happened, which is today. And so next time we have to look up this lead in another workbook or table, it's going to find their email address in Supabase, and it's going to return not only their email address, but the last date when they were validated. And that's going to help us to know if we need to revalidate them or not. Was it more than 60 days ago or not? We are pushing people who have a valid email address into what we call a staging table. And the staging table is full of leads that are in a queue ready to be sent to our enrichments table, which is another table in this workbook. So we have an automation running using make.com, and what's happening in that automation is every single day it is checking twice a day how many leads are in our campaign that have not been contacted yet. And when that drops below a threshold, I think it's 1,000 leads that have not been contacted yet, then that triggers the automation to drip in the next 3,000 or 5,000 leads from our Supabase database. And that's our staging table, which only has valid email addresses. It drips 5,000 of them into our enrichments table in Clay, and then Clay's going to run all of the enrichments to generate personalized phrases and sentences and add them to our SmartLead campaign, so that basically on autopilot that campaign stays filled up with leads and we don't need to think about it. Another massive advantage of it is that instead of running 50,000 rows all at once with all those enrichment columns, that's going to cost us a ton in OpenAI tokens and Claude tokens, we are delaying it and we're dripping it in gradually whenever it's needed, so that the cost doesn't spike. And so we can manage our P&L much better by leveraging this staging table drip automation. So if you run a B2B business and you would like to have us build this system into your outbound workflows or any other systems that you may have seen on this channel, then click the link in the description and reach out, and let's see if there's a fit for us to work together, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks.